Good morning. Welcome to Customer Story, how to protect against insider security breaches and insider threats. Hopefully everybody's still awake this morning. We're going to do this session fairly interactively. It's going to be mostly a conversation between me and Ed here, but we want everybody to be able to ask questions the whole way through, so feel free to ask a question at any point. If you can, jump up to the mic so they get it in the recording. Otherwise, we'll try and repeat the questions as we go for the recordings for the rebroadcast.
And if you don't dance, I will be forced to do interpretive dance. So.
Okay, and we really don't want that. Just by ways of introduction, my name is Ian Lindsay. I am a senior strategic consultant with Quest. I've been in IT almost 30 years. I started out as a software developer in Unix, moved into becoming a consultant, a trainer, went over to Microsoft for 14 years. The last 5 years I've been with Quest. There's a couple of other personal things there as well. You guys can check them out.
I'm Ed Panzeter. I have been in IT for about 20 years, a lot of different industries, currently in healthcare, working for a company called Universal Health Services. 80 employees to 80,000, and there's some other stuff. We're out of Philadelphia, out of King of Prussia, if you're familiar. And unlike Ian, who has really cool pictures about things he's done, I have kids instead.
So we all have to have our passions.
Yeah.
So Ed, tell us a little bit about Universal Health Services. What's your role there as well? Just kind of level set for everybody.
Right. So UHS was founded in 1979. Their primary kind of business area is owning and operating behavioral health and acute care facilities. They've they're nationwide. They're the U.S., Alaska, Hawaii, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and they've recently been moving into the U.K. So, whoops. They've got about 350 facilities worldwide, so it's a very spread out kind of industry. I am part of the team who oversees the computer infrastructure, so we kind of handle the enterprise level stuff, AD, everything that's shared throughout the entire company. So part of that is Active Directory, DNS, GPOs, that kind of stuff.
Okay. I wanted to level set with just some industry information about what's going on with security threats today. This information came from a couple of sources, the LinkedIn Information Security Community, their last year's Insider Threat Report. The new one just came out. I didn't have enough time to get it into the slides. And the Pwnymon Cost of Data Security Breach sessions as well. I see a couple of people taking the pictures. You will be able to get all the slides after the fact, so don't worry about that. Is there anybody out there who participates in either of these groups, in Pwnymon or the Insider Security Threat on LinkedIn? Okay, saw one or two hands, but okay. A couple of notes here. 62% of the people surveyed say insider threats are more frequent in the last 12 months than they've been before. So it seems to be increasing, or at least it's being noticed more. 59% of the people surveyed, privileged users pose the biggest threat to the inside of the organization. They have all of the power. They can do all of the things that we want to be able to do inside of an environment.
So who agrees with that one?
Yeah, let's go back to that one.
I mean, it should be 100%. Your privileged users have access to everything.
Yep, and there's not much you can do to stop them. Only 27% of people expect additional budget to address the problems this year. This one kind of surprised me a little bit. A lot of my customers, when I talk to them, security is the only group that's getting any money. What do people see on this? Are you getting more money for this kind of stuff or not? Some people are. Most people are shaking their heads no. Okay. Half of the people surveyed lack of controls that they have internally to be able to prevent these kinds of insider attacks. So hopefully that's what Ed will be able to share a little bit of light on as we go through here as well. 64% find it difficult to investigate the damage. You've got logs and files all over the place that you need to pull together to be able to see what actually happened. Average days to identifying a breach, 191 days. If the hacker's in your environment, you can figure out he's probably been there for more than 2 months, at least. And we all saw that with the Equifax one that just happened. as well.
Yeah, so it's difficult to investigate and you don't find out they're there for 191 days, then you don't know what they did either,
Exactly.
which is the bigger problem.
On average, about 24,000 records are accessed during any individual breach. Average cost of a breach in the US, and I've got some additional numbers on this one as well, is around $7.35 million. And the newer surveys also say that the longer it takes to find the breach, the more expensive the breach will go. Average breach cost worldwide is around $3.62 million. So fairly expensive for these to happen. So, Ed, first started really working with Quest around some mergers and acquisitions. So give us a little background on UHS's mergers scenario.
So right, so UHS obviously predominantly grows by mergers, acquisitions, and natural growth. But the natural growth is a much more linear progression. In 2009, UHS first kind of started dealing with Quest. We were using their migration manager tool for some M&A and a really, really large acquisition that pretty much doubled the company size. So we kind of developed the relationship with that, and then from there, we've kind of expanded into the suite of products that they sell. But you really, again, he tells you to buy Quest, I'll tell you, just buy something for mergers and acquisitions. It is amazing the difference, because I've done them both ways. It's amazing the difference that you experience when you have a tool that's actually helping you instead of you trying to do everything manually or with PowerShell or something like that. So that's probably the most important thing. If you guys do M&A, get something to help you.
Now, along with the general migration of the user accounts, is there anything special around security that comes in when you bring in another company and they've got a set of administrators?
Right, so that's one of the ways that it makes it massively useful is you acquire a company, they've done whatever they've done for how many years. You don't know, you can't vet it as easily if you're doing it the old-fashioned way, because invariably you're under the gun, you're throwing users into your domain, you're not being careful. With the migration tools, you can really review user access. You can make sure that no one's being moved into domain admins or nobody's moving into the nested groups, stuff like that. So it adds a lot of security on the front end that you're not then chasing your tail later, which is, again, incredibly useful. I mean, we all have more stuff to do than hours in the day. So.
And I'm assuming that kind of filters over to the security,
Absolutely.
Security permissions. Okay. So, what are some of the ongoing security challenges? I mean, you got the M&A, but as this is kind of moving forward, what are some of your ongoing challenges, concerns?
Right. So, with my primary area of responsibility being AD, DNS, and stuff like that, that's where we see the biggest security threat from our perspective. Our security team would probably give you a different answer. Our management might give you a different answer, but to me, that's what keeps me up at night. Our AD is massive. It's 75, 80,000 users. It's worldwide at this point. So we can't watch it with human eyeballs. There's just too much there. So you need something that's actually acting in the back to kind of keep you in check.
Okay. Excuse me. So how could do you think this is going to have any potential business impact?
Oh yeah, I mean with a large enough AD that, like I said, you can't watch as easily. There's a million ways that someone can do something and avoid you noticing for quite a while if you're just relying on Microsoft Active Directory basic tools. And that's where the 191 days comes in. You need to be actively watching. And the less secure you are, this is like the first area to concentrate on.
Okay. Insider threats. So, what is it, or what questions do you think your management, in general, what questions does your management come to with you to? How do you address those types of questions?
So we get a lot of trying to elevate privileges. Like I said, we're a large company. We have to give people access to their facilities, the ability to support users. One of the major issues is people trying to add those users or themselves to larger groups, privileged accounts, privileged groups. We occasionally will get somebody at a facility that, adds themselves to domain admins because they want to test something. Well, that was an important thing to kind of get in front of. And we use Change Auditor, but you can use whatever you want. And that kind of blocks that access. So what it does is, as soon as that happens, we get an alert. It blocks the ability of the user to do that. And we can then take that alert, go back to the user, and instead of just hoping that it's not happening or knowing that it's blocked, we can go back to the user and say, okay, why are you trying to do this? We're not trying to stop you from doing your job, but you can't do that.
Okay. Are there specific events, activities you need to be alerted on?
Yeah, I mean, so privileged groups, again, that's the most important one, but also executive accounts, executive computer accounts.
Anybody else have to monitor executive computer accounts and make sure they work?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. And if you don't, and you don't have software and you want the software, change one of the executive's accounts. A few days later, you'll be able to buy whatever you need. I'm just here to help.
Think about this from kind of before having some tools and after having some tools. Like, what kind of burden does this put on your team?
Yeah, so again, when you don't have the tools, you're getting a report, let's say the executive user, oh, my account's not working, you find out, oh, something wasn't set right. What happened that set it wrong? You can't learn that. And again, this is about teaching users as well as your admins and your personnel, as well as holding them, look, we're not firing anybody, but maybe you don't do that next time. So being able to look back and kind of come up with that stuff, and also one of our things is honestly 8, 9 times out of 10, the biggest issue isn't with your personnel doing something. It's with automated scripts, automated applications doing stuff. So why, every day this account's locked. Well, because that person is marked as, terminated or leave of absence in your HR software, which you're pulling directly from. You can solve that and you can push it back on HR without having to chase your tail for a week or two.
Okay. Anything else you want to add there, or you're good?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Forensic investigations. Now, when some of this stuff happens, how are you trying to figure this out? What did you do natively? What are you doing today?
Right. So traditionally, the easiest example is account lockouts. Somebody calls you, my account's being locked out constantly. You go to the Microsoft lockout tool, you look up the account, you see what server locked it out, you go to that server, you look through the event log, you may end up at another server if you've got enough domain controllers. It's all chasing it down. It takes a lot of time and a lot of just looking through event logs. So, that was our first and primary use of Change Auditor was if a user's getting locked out, we can look that up, we can give them the source, and we can move on. So we're not spending an hour, 2 hours just trying to find somebody because they forgot to change their Wi-Fi password.
Or the password that on one of their 5 mobile devices that they carry.
Exactly. I mean, it's, and that's always the argument.
Okay. So the, okay. I'm going to just jump next.
So
go ahead and kind of show some of these things as to how we did them.
Yeah, and one of the big things about simplifying our life has been an actual add-on that Quest has released called IT Security Search, which allows us to push out the ability to kind of search for users quickly and easily, and I can limit users. So this facility has this ability to look at this group and that's it, this OU. And that's helped us kind of really streamline our processes, and we're not dealing with people. Uh-oh.
That's what we get for taking too long.
So we're not dealing with people who have to go through 3 levels of IT just to get an answer on something.
Okay.
And again, whatever you use, it makes life so much easier.
Give me 1 second when we get back into the demo environment.
All right, I'm going to start dancing.
I knew you were, but so that's why we bring it up very fast. So, a couple of the scenarios that you had mentioned one was user account lockouts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's used probably half a dozen to a dozen times a day for user tickets.
So how are the tickets coming in?
Usually, we get them from the CS or our support center that, so and so saying they're getting locked out. They know they changed everything. There's no reason for them to be getting locked out.
Okay, so we've got a user that's locked out. We got a ticket to say Katie Menard was locked out. So you search on Katie Menard. And now what we're doing is we're trolling all of the events. And I hope I spelled her name right. Yes.
Yeah, and what you're seeing is, so the security search goes through all of the items that you have and pulls up the results. So it pulls from multiple sources, so you're getting a lot more information than you would get as, individually.
And the guys are probably demoing down to the expo area on the same machines.
What happened? Did you spell her name right?
Possibly wrong.
Yeah, you did. You spelled it wrong.
I can't type, sorry.
So unfortunately they haven't perfected it that much that it actually knows who you're looking for if you spell it wrong.
It can't read my mind yet.
I'm going to make that feature request.
Okay, there we go.
Works much better. So what you're seeing is just, it'll come up, you better hit stop. It'll come up with everything from today and start looking backwards. And then you just double click.
Yep. So it's getting all of the activity that's been happening inside of the system across all of our logs, so we can actually drill down in, and we want to look specifically at the account lockouts. So I have specifically some events here, accounts locked out. There was 2 events. This will drill it down to give me those 2 places where Katie did lock out. I can go ahead and select on either one of those. They both happened August. We'll go ahead and look at the details of the particular event. I can get a little bit more information about the lockout itself, so I can see that it was Katie. And I apologize for my mouse being a little small. Let me do this so I can zoom in. So we see the lockout was for Katie. She was locked out by domain controller 1, and she was logged into workstation 7 at this particular point when she did lock out. So now we have the information to know where it locked out. We can go back in and go ahead and help her out, make sure she's doing what she needs to do. Okay. GPOs, I think you had some issues around GPOs.
Yeah, so
people don't mess with GPOs, do they?
Never. So, the other thing is, you have your users editing the GPO. Oh, yes, sir. It'll show every place that it's locking out from, yeah. And
Yes.
it's, again, you can just go through. If it locks out from like our Cisco ISE, we know it's probably VPN. If it locks out through Exchange, it's probably OWA, that kind of stuff. So it's a really great tool, but it helps you kind of stay ahead of those problems. And also with the alerting and everything, you go to those users, and again, we're not trying to stop you from doing your job. What are you trying to do?
Okay.
So, right, so, somebody accidentally edits the default domain policy or something like that. We've all had that. So, it's the same idea. You go through, you look it up by name.
Okay. So this scenario here is somebody made changes to the research group's GPO. We know it happened this week, so instead of just letting it search through all the data, I'll just limit it to the last 7 days to try and find this information. The users are complaining, I can't change my screen background, or my colors are ugly, or control panel items have locked out. So again, we go in, searched on the GPO name, and then we'll start to get the records. And I'll stop that. I'll go back and start that again. Mouse is just... So we found some of the records here that happened this week. I had created the GPO earlier in the week for the research teams to set their policies on their desktops. And then I can see there were some other changes that happened, in particular 2 changes here that happened from Jeff Currier. So I'll go ahead and select one of these. I can go in and also look at the details of that particular GPO change. I know who did it already, Jeff. So I can see what the value was that he changed. He changed the color settings and the computer configuration of this particular GPO. If I need to get additional information, maybe about Jeff, I go ahead and click on Jeff. It will go out, grab me the information out of Active Directory so that I can see what is, I have to look up his phone number, his email, so I can send him a note. See, he doesn't have any direct reports. I can go in, see what groups he belongs to, make sure that he belongs to all the right groups and he should have made this change. We have some additional queries we can do as well to look at what else did Jeff do while he was on this system. Or if I need to see what he owned, or maybe I need to see what changed on Jeff, I can see that as well.
So how many people here have an existing SIM solution? So right, so do we. But part of the argument for us is a SIM solution gives you everything. It gives you more stuff than you can usually look through. And you're constantly kind of adjusting your SIM. I want this information, I want that information. A targeted product gives you a little better information, but if you have the personnel to go through that SIM and program that SIM, good on you, I wish.
So another scenario I think you mentioned earlier is who accessed a file, right? Being able to see that. So scenario of I get auditors coming to me and they need to know who all accessed this particular file today. So I can actually search on the file name that they gave me. Credit card. So we'll search on the file. Actually, they wanted it for today, so I will stop that. We'll go in and say, do it for today. Actually, yesterday. I wanted it for yesterday. So we're bringing back all of the accesses for this particular file. So this is grabbing who has opened the file, moved the file, read the file, modified the file. Now, they just wanted to know everybody who opened that particular file. So we're going to go in and we'll just narrow this down to the file opened. So now here's all of my records for yesterday for everybody who opened this particular file. So first what I'll do is I need to get this out to the auditor, so I'll export it out to a PDF file in this case. So a nice report that I can go ahead and then email off to my auditor. Here's everybody who touched this file yesterday. If there was any in here that I wanted a little more information on, or if they wanted to know a little more information about the particular file, I can find the individual user or records and see who audited them. And I also then have a link off to the file so I can get additional details about the file itself. So if we needed information about who has rights to this particular file or who owns this particular file, where you get to this file, how is it shared out on as well, we can get to that. So we get to it through the finance share or through the administrative share on the workstation. Okay. So let's jump back. Now, you talked about security earlier, Ed, and limiting what administrative access people had.
Right. So, being able to look up stuff is all well and good, but how many of you are confident that you have the security on your files and on your AD perfect? I mean, if you do, so the biggest part is being able to kind of, especially with our organization being spread out, it's tough to have everyone have the access that they need without giving them maybe a little bit too much here, a little bit too much there. So one of the big things is protection and actually blocking, actively blocking, instead of just relying on the security to do it.
Okay. So in this scenario, we want to stop people from being able to put additional people into the domain admins. I'm logged in here on a Windows 7 machine as one of my users, Peter. Peter got a call from one of his buddies on the help desk, said, hey, just drop me in a domain admins group for a couple of minutes so I can go ahead and get these tickets fixed. Seems like a fair request, so we come in. Peter goes into the users and computers, tries to find Scott. So there he is, Scott. Goes in to add him into the system. Now, Peter's a domain admin as well, but when he goes in and tries to add him, he actually gets returned a block message that he doesn't have permissions. Just looks like a regular message. What we're doing behind the scenes is keeping a list of who actually has the rights to edit this group. Peter doesn't belong to that list, so when he tries to do this, it will actually generate an error. Now, along with generating an error, we can go in and we'll actually record that he tried to do that with this record here. So if I double click on this, I get to the details and I can see that Peter logged in on a machine called Windows 7, tried to add Scott to the domain admins group, and result here, protection. We protected it. We didn't allow it to happen. Along with that, we also generate an alert so that while I'm sitting at my desk, going in, opening up my email, I get a nice email alert going in telling me Peter tried to add Scott to the domain administrators group. So I get this alert as well. Now I can go reach out to Peter and go, hey, what the heck were you trying to do?
And this is where, to me, the best value of any kind of system comes in is not only can you block them, but can I know so I can retrain? If it just blocks them and they get that message and they walk away, are they going to try it again? Are they going to try and figure out a different way to do it? So you can follow up with the user or the user's manager if it's an ongoing issue and say, hey, we understand, what are you trying to do again? I keep harping on that, but that's one of my major questions every time is, what do we need to do to get you working, to do what you need to do?
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for either of us? Here, do you have any?
Huh? Yes, sir.
That's correct. You actually would set up a template that says this is what I want to audit, so you don't have to audit everything. You can just audit the specific pieces.
Right, so you can be very granular or you can be very open. And again,
I see Brian there. Was the question around enabling the auditing in the OS? It's not auditing in the OS. No, it's within the tool. Is there any other questions? Yes, over here. So, could you come to the mic to ask that? I was having a little trouble hearing you. Sorry. Stale counts.
You have contractors who are doing IT work for you. They were never in the HR database, and you have a process to remove them, but nothing's triggering in HR because they're just contractors. It's more on the business to make sure they're removed. Would there be any kind of monitoring to deal with stale or older accounts that should have been gone but kind of are still there?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah, with Enterprise Reporter, you can kind of report on any of that stuff. any of, your normal, again, stuff you can find otherwise, you can do other things to find it, but it makes it a lot more easy, and you can actually schedule the reports to just kick out to you regularly.
Now are your stale accounts, are they still in use? The contractor is still utilizing them, or there's no activity on the account? Okay, no activity on the account. Yes, you can definitely go in, use a tool like an enterprise reporter, which would search out and see these accounts have no activity. We had a similar scenario come up with a customer where an account actually got disabled, got re-enabled, and they needed to figure out what was going on. You can audit and see that there was no activity that happened from that particular account by looking up the account, seeing no records created on or around about that particular account, and then taking the processes, whatever you need to do to disable them. There are other tools as well that you can do to implement workflows to say, okay, I have a customer who implemented a workflow where they say a contractor's account expires every 30 days unless the manager approves and says the person is still working. So every 30 days the manager gets an email. Are these people still working, yes or no? If they are, the expiration of the account gets pushed out another 30 days. If they're not, the account then falls into the deprovisioning process as well. So there are a couple of ways to do that. Any other, question over here? Group rights? Privilege rights? I can. Or do you have anything you want to say about privilege rights?
Just take them away.
Take them away.
Oh, least privilege.
Yeah. We were primarily looking at the auditing. So we have auditing of all of the groups. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So there are a number of ways to do that as well. There are products that you can. It's not great in Active Directory to go in and try and assign the rights within AD as to who can do what. So there are a couple of tools out there that you can get that will allow you to define what rights a user should have to be able to access, manage an organizational unit or a set of groups within that. So we have a tool called Active Roles. It's a proxy-based solution that you define inside of the tool what rights the user should have, what organizational units they should be able to see, and then give them an interface that shows them just those pieces and assigns 0 rights inside of Active Directory, so that if they go through PowerShell or a script or AD users and computers or some other tool, they can't do anything because they don't have any rights as well. The auditing side of it will audit everything that they are doing. So if there is any sort of anomaly, they went into some OU they shouldn't have rights to, we can then go look at it and alert somebody that it happened, and then go ahead in and look at it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any other questions. We are going to be in the booth in the expo area for the rest of the day up until 4 o'clock. At the end of the day, we are at 3 o'clock. We are raffling off an Oculus Rift, if anybody is interested in a VR helmet. And if you have any other questions, we will be able to do any additional demos. There are evaluations, obviously, for all of the events, so please do the evaluations. If you have any additional questions, feel free to come up to us at any point. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the sessions today.